The bustling streets of Beirut offered a perfect canvas for deception. A woman in her early 30s, dressed in unassuming business attire, moved through the crowds, a leather briefcase clutched in her hand. Inside, glossy catalogs of European armaments. Outside, the ordinary rhythm of a city. But beneath it all, a carefully constructed lie was about to be put to its ultimate test. Her name, according to her Belgian passport, was Sophie Arnaud, a commercial representative for a discreet defense solutions company based in Brussels. What no one around her knew was that Sophie didn't exist. She was a phantom, a combatant in Mossad's parlance, dispatched on a mission so sensitive, its very existence was a closely guarded secret. Before we delve into the intricate layers of this operation, tell us in the comments, where are you tuning in from today? Now, let's journey back to a time when the perfect disguise was the deadliest weapon. The labyrinthine streets of Beirut, choked with the exhaust of aging taxis and perfumed with the rich scent of Lebanese coffee, were both a camouflage and a constant challenge for Rachel Zimmerman. Under the meticulous guise of Sophie Arnaud, she moved with practiced ease through the chaotic symphony of the city. Her attire was deliberately unremarkable, a tailored, unassuming business suit, practical but not flashy, chosen to blend seamlessly into the tapestry of European expatriates and local professionals. Her leather briefcase, a genuine Italian piece, held more than just glossy catalogs of advanced European armaments. It contained the fabricated essence of her new identity, Eurotech Defense Solutions. Every step, every glance, every interaction was a calculated component of a persona that had been years in the making. Her mission, audacious and fraught with existential risk, was starkly defined. To penetrate the innermost sanctum of Hezbollah's command and control apparatus, to chart the unseen currents of its communication networks, and to identify the decision-makers who steered its formidable power. For the Mossad, this was not merely about intercepting signals or pinpointing weapon caches. This was about understanding the very neural pathways of an adversary, mapping the human intelligence flow that transformed ideological intent into operational action. The conceptualization of Black Protocol, as the operation was internally designated, traced its origins back to the late 1990s. Intelligence analysts within the Mossad, particularly those in the highly selective Caesarea division, responsible for human intelligence operations, had begun to identify a recurring pattern among various militant organizations throughout the Middle East. These groups, while often receiving external state sponsorship, displayed an increasing and insatiable appetite for advanced weaponry, systems that could not be acquired through conventional overt channels. Hezbollah, a prominent focus of Israeli intelligence, exemplified this trend. With significant backing from Iran and Syria, its arsenal had expanded exponentially, yet its leadership consistently sought to diversify its procurement streams, wary of over-reliance on a limited number of suppliers. This strategic imperative for diversification became the crucial vulnerability that Yosef Levi, a seasoned officer within Caesarea and the commanding officer for Black Protocol, recognized as a potential fissure for exploitation. The idea of creating a phantom arms dealership, a classic ruse in the espionage playbook, was refined and elevated to an unprecedented level of operational sophistication. The process began 2 years before Sophie Arnaud ever set foot in Beirut. A specialized Mossad team embarked on the painstaking establishment of Eurotech Defense Solutions. Brussels, Belgium, was chosen as the corporate domicile, its reputation as a hub for international commerce, and its less stringent oversight compared to other European capitals, making it an ideal location for a discreet, ostensibly legitimate, defense contractor. Every aspect of Eurotech's existence was painstakingly crafted. The company was legally registered with all requisite documentation, articles of incorporation, tax identifiers, and official business licenses. A modest but functional office space was leased in a nondescript commercial building, complete with authentic furniture, active utility accounts, and even a small, perpetually stocked kitchen. A dedicated telephone line was installed, its number circulating on industry registries, answered by an automated system that projected an air of professional efficiency. A multi-page, professionally designed website was launched, detailing Eurotech's purported expertise in areas such as tactical surveillance systems, secure communication protocols, and logistical support for defense infrastructure. The site featured generic stock photos of military hardware and a carefully worded mission statement that emphasized ethical and responsible defense solutions. To further embed Eurotech within the legitimate defense ecosystem, the company participated in 2 smaller regional armaments trade fairs in Eastern Europe. These were not the sprawling showcases of giants like Eurosatory or DSEI, but rather focused events in cities like Bratislava and Sofia, frequented by less prominent contractors, regional defense attachés, and a multitude of intermediaries seeking niche equipment. At these fairs, Eurotech's unwitting representatives, carefully selected by Mossad, engaged in genuine discussions, exchanged business cards, and collected promotional materials from other companies. This provided a verifiable history of market presence and interaction. A crucial element in this corporate fabrication was the nominal involvement of Claude Mercier, a real Belgian businessman with minor holdings in obscure industrial ventures. His passive, unknowing participation lent a veneer of authentic European ownership, providing a tangible, verifiable contact point should any potential client conduct even a cursory background check. His existence added a layer of human credibility to the otherwise manufactured entity. With the corporate infrastructure meticulously laid, the focus shifted to the central figure, Rachel Zimmerman. Her 18 months of legend building were an intense period of transformation, designed to mold her into the believable persona of Sophie Arnaud. This involved a multifaceted approach, combining rigorous training with practical immersion. Rachel underwent extensive instruction in the intricate lexicon of defense contracting, mastering the nuances of ballistic trajectories, signal encryption protocols, and the logistical challenges of transporting hazardous materials. She learned the prevailing market prices for everything from night vision goggles to anti-tank missile components. Her training included simulated negotiation scenarios designed to hone her ability to project confidence, maintain composure under pressure, and subtly guide conversations without raising suspicion. Rachel attended numerous legitimate industry conferences and expos across Europe, from the bustling halls of Dusseldorf's Messe to smaller, specialized forums in Paris and London. She circulated among genuine defense contractors, observing their mannerisms, their conversational styles, and the unwritten rules of their trade. She cultivated a network of legitimate contacts, engaging in discussions about emerging technologies, regulatory hurdles, and regional security assessments. These interactions, all recorded and analyzed, provided invaluable real-world experience, allowing her to refine Sophie's professional demeanor and contextual understanding. Crucially, Sophie Arnaud began conducting minor legitimate transactions. These were typically small-scale deals for non-lethal equipment, meticulously chosen to be unremarkable and low-risk, yet significant enough to create a verifiable commercial footprint. She facilitated the sale of secure communication software to a private security firm operating in West Africa, brokered a deal for advanced drone detection systems for a border patrol unit in a nascent Eastern European state, and even managed the acquisition of specialized medical kits for a humanitarian organization. Each successful transaction, each meticulously filed invoice and bank transfer, contributed to Sophie Arnaud's verifiable professional history. By the time the operation was ready to proceed to Beirut, Sophie Arnaud possessed a robust, multi-layered biography, complete with legitimate professional references, a credible financial history, and a network of industry associates who could, if asked, vouch for her professional conduct. She was no longer merely Rachel Zimmerman playing a part. She had, for all intents and purposes, become Sophie Arnaud. The inherent urgency driving Black Protocol was deeply rooted in the increasingly volatile geopolitical climate of the Levant. By the mid-2000s, Hezbollah had solidified its position as an unparalleled force within Lebanon, effectively carving out a state within a state. Its control over vast swathes of territory, particularly in the south and the Bekaa Valley, was uncontested by the weakened Lebanese central government. Its arsenal, bolstered by continuous supply lines from Iran and Syria, was sophisticated, rivaling that of several regional national armies. For Israel, Hezbollah represented an undeniable, multifaceted threat along its northern border, capable of launching thousands of rockets into civilian areas and orchestrating cross-border incursions. However, Israeli intelligence understood that the true operational resilience of Hezbollah did not solely reside in its weaponry. It lay in its decentralized yet remarkably efficient command structure, its ability to disseminate orders, coordinate actions, and adapt to evolving threats. To understand how decisions were made, who made them, and how those directives flowed through the organization's complex network was considered an intelligence priority of the highest order. Such information was deemed more strategically valuable than merely locating and destroying a physical arms depot. It offered the potential to unravel the very fabric of the organization's operational capabilities. The mission was not simply to gather information, but to gain an intimate, almost anatomical understanding of the adversary. The elaborate stage was now fully set, and Sophie Arnaud, a ghost in the machine, was ready for her debut. The initial approach, the critical moment of direct engagement, unfolded not in a darkened alley or a clandestine rendezvous, but in the polished, unremarkable lobby of a five-star hotel in downtown Beirut. This setting, chosen by the Hezbollah intermediaries, was itself a form of operational security, an ostensibly legitimate business meeting blending seamlessly into the city's vibrant commercial rhythm. Sophie Arnaud, impeccably dressed and projecting an air of confident professionalism, arrived precisely on time. Her demeanor betrayed no hint of the true stakes involved. She was introduced to a man who identified himself only as Abu Hassan. Aged 47, with a thick beard and eyes that missed nothing, Abu Hassan presented himself as a representative of Lebanese interests, interested in sourcing advanced defense equipment. His handshake was firm, his gaze direct, yet his words remained carefully vague, a standard opening gambit in the world of illicit arms procurement. The initial conversation revolved around general market trends and the perceived needs of local clients for systems such as night vision optics, encrypted communication devices, and certain types of specialized surveillance technology. Sophie, drawing on her 18 months of legend building, responded with an equal measure of guarded professionalism, discussing product specifications and delivery timelines in a manner that was both informed and non-committal. What Abu Hassan, and indeed no one else in that hotel lobby, could have known was the invisible conduit of intelligence flowing from their seemingly innocuous meeting. Embedded within a discreet button on Sophie's blouse was a miniaturized, state-of-the-art transmission device. This wasn't merely a microphone, it was a highly sophisticated audio and data encoder, developed by Unit 81, Mossad's elite technology arm. Every word spoken, every ambient sound, even subtle changes in Sophie's physiological responses, were encoded and transmitted in real time. The signal bounced off a network of clandestine relays, eventually reaching a secure analysis unit in Tel Aviv. There, in a climate-controlled room devoid of external light, sat Yosef Levi, the operations commander, and David Cohen, a 38-year-old intelligence analyst specializing in Hezbollah's command structures. David, earphones pressed to his ears, meticulously logged every detail. "He's probing for flexibility on payment terms," he murmured, his eyes scanning a digital transcription of the conversation. Yosef, observing the data stream on a large monitor, nodded. "Standard. See if she can subtly elicit specifics on end-user requirements. Focus on operational environment." Sophie, thousands of miles away, guided by her extensive training, would then weave questions about adaptability to specific operational environments or robustness in diverse climatic conditions into the conversation. Seemingly innocent inquiries designed to extract crucial details about the client's actual use cases and, by extension, their organizational structure. Over the next 3 months, Sophie cultivated her relationship with Abu Hassan and other intermediaries within Hezbollah's orbit. This period was characterized by a strategic patience, a deliberate slow burn that was counterintuitive to the high-stakes world of covert operations. Mossad's doctrine on deep cover operations emphasized the importance of building trust organically, rather than forcing a rapid conclusion. Rushing a deal, showing undue eagerness, would instantly trigger suspicion. Sophie never pushed too hard. She never demonstrated an excessive anxiety to close a deal. Her objective was not a quick sale, but sustained access. Her approach was a carefully calibrated dance of calculated allure and perceived caution. She presented Eurotech's catalog with competitive, but crucially, not suspiciously low, prices. Undercutting the market too aggressively would have immediately signaled an ulterior motive. Instead, her pricing reflected a credible, though lean, profit margin, consistent with a nimble European defense supplier. This balance resonated with the Hezbollah intermediaries, who were accustomed to the often inflated costs associated with clandestine procurement. Perhaps even more effectively, Sophie occasionally refused certain inquiries. When Abu Hassan subtly probed about the possibility of acquiring certain dual-use technologies, systems that could have both civilian and military applications but were highly regulated, Sophie would politely decline, citing corporate policy and political sensitivities that Eurotech is not equipped to navigate. She would explain, with a practiced sincerity, that Eurotech's reputation depended on maintaining strict adherence to European export controls, even if it meant foregoing a lucrative deal. This paradoxical strategy significantly boosted her credibility. In a shadowy world where every vendor was seemingly desperate to sell anything at any cost, a businesswoman who demonstrated a degree of caution and even a hint of principled selectivity became inherently more trustworthy. This was not a bluff. It was a carefully planned psychological maneuver. Her refusal on the comm scrambler last week, David Cohen reported to Yosef Levi, was interpreted by their side as a sign of legitimate business practices. They noted it in their internal reports. It bought us currency. However, beneath this meticulously constructed facade of trust and legitimate commerce, an unseen undercurrent of suspicion was already beginning to stir. Unbeknownst to Sophie Arnaud and her Mossad handlers, a critical vulnerability had emerged not within her personal legend, but within the very fabric of Eurotech Defense Solutions itself. Hassan al-Amin, a 39-year-old arms intermediary who had been instrumental in connecting Sophie to Abu Hassan, was not merely a legitimate broker. He was a double agent, secretly working for Syrian intelligence. Syrian intelligence, a complex player in the regional shadow wars, maintained its own intricate, often adversarial, relationships with various militant groups, including Hezbollah. While nominally allies, Damascus frequently sought to monitor and, where possible, influence Hezbollah's operations. Al-Amin, leveraging his deep connections within the regional arms networks, had become aware of Eurotech Defense Solutions months prior to Sophie's direct engagement. His initial inquiries were routine, part of his function as a Syrian asset to track any new, unvetted players entering the arms market. However, his deeper dive into Eurotech's corporate structure and its nascent transaction history revealed subtle inconsistencies. The company's financial records, while clean, showed an unusually rapid capitalization for a firm its size, and its declared ownership structure, while legally sound, lacked the long-standing familial ties common in European defense firms of similar purported stature. These were not red flags indicating definite intelligence involvement, but rather yellow flags, subtle anomalies that warranted further investigation. Al-Amin, reporting to his Syrian handlers, flagged Eurotech as a company of interest, suggesting it might be a front for European or even American intelligence agencies seeking to gain insight into regional arms flows. His reports were then, in part, shared with Hezbollah's counterintelligence units, part of the delicate information exchange that characterized the Syrian-Hezbollah alliance. The impact of Al-Amin's intelligence was profound. The decision by Hezbollah to proceed with the meeting between Abu Hassan and Sophie Arnaud was therefore not an innocent commercial overture. It was a deliberate, calculated move. Abu Hassan had been instructed to engage Sophie, not merely to source equipment, but to subtly probe her, to assess her reactions, and to allow Hezbollah's own burgeoning counterintelligence capabilities to observe her and Eurotech more closely. They wanted to see how far the operation would go, what kind of information she would seek, and, most critically, who might be truly behind her. This revelation injected a perilous layer of uncertainty and heightened danger into Black Protocol. Sophie Arnaud was no longer merely infiltrating an organization. She was, to an extent, being allowed in, observed under a microscope by an adversary already aware that something was amiss. Her perceived credibility, cultivated through months of careful deception, was now being deliberately tested, each interaction a precarious step on a wire strung across an abyss. The game had just become infinitely more complex, and the stakes, already astronomical, had just been raised again. The meticulous plans of the Mossad were now operating on a battlefield where the enemy was not entirely in the dark, and Sophie, unaware of this crucial development, was walking deeper into the trap. The invitation, when it finally arrived, was relayed through Abu Hassan with an almost casual tone, yet its implications reverberated through the secure channels back to Tel Aviv. Sophie Arnaud was requested to attend a meeting in a southern suburb of Beirut, an area widely known as a Hezbollah stronghold. The message specified a significant order, requiring special logistical considerations, an unambiguous signal that she was finally being brought into closer proximity to the organization's inner workings. For Mossad, this was the moment the entire two-year operation had been meticulously engineered to achieve. It was also the precipice of extreme danger. Prior to the meeting, Rachel Zimmerman, in her role as Sophie, underwent an intensified preparatory phase. Mossad's technical division, Unit 81, equipped her with additional highly advanced tracking devices. These were not the relatively overt transmitters of her blouse button. These were microtransponders, smaller than a grain of rice, designed to emit intermittent, low-power signals that could be picked up by airborne assets or covert ground receivers. One was subtly integrated into the sole of her shoe, another into the clasp of her bracelet. These devices were redundant layers of security, designed to provide a last-ditch location fix if her primary communication channels were compromised. Beyond technology, Rachel's most valuable asset remained her honed human observation skills. Her training had included extensive modules on visual intelligence gathering. She had memorized faces of dozens of known Hezbollah operatives from intelligence photographs, studied architectural patterns common in their safe houses, and could identify subtle security measures. A reinforced door, an unusual placement of a surveillance camera, a particular type of antenna that would reveal the strategic importance of a location. Her mission directives from Yosef Levi were explicit. Beyond the immediate commercial negotiation, her primary task was to absorb every discernible detail of her surroundings, to act as a human sensor in an environment where no other form of intelligence collection was possible. Dr. Sarah Goldstein, the operational psychologist who had prepared Rachel, emphasized the importance of maintaining an almost detached, photographic memory during these high-stress encounters. The journey to the meeting location was fraught with a quiet, almost imperceptible tension. Abu Hassan himself drove Sophie, navigating through increasingly narrow and crowded streets. The urban landscape shifted from the cosmopolitan flair of downtown Beirut to the more austere, residential architecture characteristic of Hezbollah's southern suburbs. Checkpoints, manned by individuals in plain clothes but carrying visible sidearms, became more frequent. Sophie's cover story was that she was a foreign businesswoman being chauffeured to a meeting with important clients. At each stop, Abu Hassan would exchange quick, deferential words with the guards, who would then wave them through after a brief but thorough visual inspection of Sophie and the car. The meeting itself took place in an apparently ordinary multi-story residential building, indistinguishable from its neighbors in a densely populated area. Its anonymity was its greatest protection. Sophie was ushered through a series of internal doors, each one locked and then unlocked by a different individual, indicating a layered security protocol. Inside, she was received by two men. One, she recognized immediately from intelligence photographs, Mahmoud Darwish, a 41-year-old mid-level commander within Hezbollah, known for his expertise in equipment procurement and logistical networks. The other was Imad Fayez, 44, an operative specializing in encrypted communications, whose face was less familiar, but whose presence spoke to the technical nature of the impending discussion. Both men possessed an air of understated authority, their eyes analytical and assessing. They did not shake her hand, a cultural norm that, in this context, was also a subtle power dynamic. Fadi Nasrallah, a 29-year-old former militant with a background in counterintelligence, stood silently by the door, his posture suggesting constant vigilance. The ensuing negotiation, which lasted nearly 2 hours, centered on the potential acquisition of portable anti-tank missile systems and advanced encrypted communication equipment. Sophie, maintaining her professional composure, discussed technical specifications, delivery schedules, and payment structures with an air of genuine commercial interest. She deftly parried questions about Eurotech's supply chain vulnerabilities and subtly probed for clarification on quantities and specific operational requirements. Every word she spoke was a calculated chess move, designed to elicit information without revealing any of her own. Concurrently, her mind was a whirlwind of observation. She catalogued every detail, the subtle hum of a hidden generator, the faint scent of stale cigarette smoke mixed with strong Arabic coffee, the worn pattern on the Persian rug in the meeting room. She noted the precise layout of the building's interior, identifying at least 3 distinct levels of security protocols before reaching the meeting room. There was a reception area, a guarded waiting room, and then a final secured corridor. She observed the faces of other individuals who occasionally entered and exited adjacent rooms, operatives, clerks, guards, mentally cross-referencing them against known Hezbollah profiles. She listened to the cadence of phones ringing in the background, trying to discern if they were internal lines or external communications. She even registered the regional accent of one of the guards, a detail that could provide further geographical context to their origins. The entire floor, she surmised, appeared to be dedicated to operational activities. The intelligence she was gathering, silently and almost subconsciously, was invaluable. The meeting concluded with a mutual agreement to continue discussions, a successful outcome for both sides on the surface. Sophie returned to her hotel in downtown Beirut, maintaining strict operational protocols. She stayed for 2 more days, conducting several minor follow-up meetings with other legitimate commercial contacts. This was a crucial element of her cover. A true arms dealer would not immediately depart after a single important meeting, as it would suggest a lack of other business. This mundane activity was part of the carefully constructed rhythm of Sophie Arnaud's life. However, on the 3rd day, as Rachel prepared for her scheduled departure from Lebanon, the first alarm bells of her extensive training began to chime. While traveling in a taxi towards Beirut Rafik Hariri International Airport, she noted a dark-colored sedan. It was generic enough to be common, but her trained eye caught a detail, a small, almost imperceptible dent above the rear left wheel arch. She saw it once, pulling out of her hotel. She dismissed it as coincidence. Then, 20 minutes later, after a deliberate detour through a bustling market to test for surveillance, she saw the same sedan again, parked subtly on a side street. Its occupant seemingly engaged in casual conversation. A cold, hard certainty began to form in her stomach. Finally, as her taxi navigated the complex approach roads to the airport, the sedan reappeared a 3rd time, now several cars behind. The coincidence threshold had been definitively breached. Rachel did not panic. Her training had instilled a profound sense of calm under pressure. Activating her emergency protocols, she subtly reached into her purse. She extracted 2 secondary electronic devices, a burner phone and a small digital recorder, and, waiting for a momentary stop in traffic, she discreetly dropped them into a passing garbage bin, a common practice to shed any easily traceable electronics. She then instructed her taxi driver, with a feigned sense of urgency, to change routes again, citing a desire to avoid traffic she heard about on the radio. She initiated her second exit strategy, using a secondary, pre-arranged passport for check-in on a different airline, under a different name, for a flight departing an hour later than her original booking. In Tel Aviv, the subtle shifts in her transmission signals, combined with a brief, coded burst she managed to send, immediately triggered emergency exfiltration procedures. Yosef Levi, grim-faced, mobilized Tamar Ben David, a 31-year-old Mossad support agent specializing in logistics and emergency extractions, who immediately began coordinating with discrete assets in Lebanon to monitor Sophie's movements and prepare contingency routes. The situation was critical, but the precise nature of the threat remained ambiguous. Was the surveillance routine merely Hezbollah's standard practice of monitoring foreign visitors in sensitive areas? Or had Sophie's deep cover been irrevocably compromised, and she was now identified as an intelligence operative? The answer would only come weeks later. The Mossad Signals Intelligence Unit worked tirelessly, intercepting and decrypting Hezbollah's internal communications. Weeks of painstaking analysis eventually yielded a critical piece of information. Documents intercepted from Hezbollah's counterintelligence division, reviewed by Major Ahmad Khalil, a 50-year-old counterintelligence officer, revealed that Sophie Arnaud had been flagged. She was classified as a person of interest, suspected of being part of a possible Western intelligence operation, identity uncertain. This ambiguous classification was, in its own way, a triumph. The meticulous 2-year construction of Sophie Arnaud's legend had worked almost too well. Hezbollah, despite its suspicions and its deliberate attempts to test her, had not definitively identified her as a Mossad agent. Their suspicions revolved around potential links to European or even American intelligence agencies, a broad category that effectively masked her true affiliation. The inability to distinguish between a legitimate, albeit suspect, arms company and a sophisticated Israeli intelligence operation created a crucial layer of ambiguity. This operational success, achieved under the gravest of circumstances, meant that while Sophie Arnaud's immediate mission was terminated, her deep cover had survived intact. The immediate danger had passed, but the implications of this near miss would continue to unfold. Upon Rachel Zimmerman's safe return to Israel, the immediate focus shifted from field operations to the meticulous process of intelligence analysis. The raw data she had painstakingly collected during her mission as Sophie Arnaud was invaluable. It included not just the audio transmissions from her devices, but also the rich tapestry of visual and contextual information absorbed by her trained observation, the faces of operatives, the layout of the Hezbollah command post, the security protocols, and even the subtle accents of the guards. David Cohen, the 38-year-old intelligence analyst specializing in Hezbollah, led the dedicated team tasked with processing this influx of data. In the sterile, secure environment of the Mossad's analytical division in Tel Aviv, Rachel debriefed for days, recounting every detail, every nuance, every sensory input from her time in Beirut. Her verbal reports were cross-referenced with the recorded audio, with satellite imagery of the suburb, and with existing signals intelligence. The combined effort began to yield a significantly more detailed and granular mapping of Hezbollah's operational structure in Beirut. The analysis identified at least 4 key commanders, including Mahmoud Darwish and Imad Fayez, who regularly utilized the specific command posts Sophie had visited. It established patterns of their meetings, identified specific communication routes, and, crucially, mapped these nodes to other elements within the broader Hezbollah network. This intelligence provided an unprecedented understanding of the organization's human and structural vulnerabilities. However, an unexpected consequence of Sophie's penetration soon emerged, illustrating a fundamental principle of intelligence operations. The act of observing an adversary inevitably alters their behavior. Within weeks of her exfiltration, intercepted communications and satellite reconnaissance revealed that the Hezbollah command post Sophie had infiltrated was undergoing significant changes. The building was partially desattivated, its functions being gradually transferred to other, newly established locations. New security procedures were implemented across the organization's Beirut assets, indicating a heightened state of vigilance. This was a direct result of the person of interest flag raised by Major Ahmad Khalil and the subsequent internal investigation by Hezbollah's counterintelligence unit. While they had not definitively identified Sophie as Mossad, the mere suspicion of external intelligence penetration had prompted a hardening of their operational security. The intelligence gathered, while precise at the moment of collection, became perishable almost immediately. The narrative of Black Protocol gained a grim urgency 2 months later, in July 2006, with the eruption of the Second Lebanon War. The 34-day conflict that ensued was a brutal test for both the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, and Hezbollah's operational resilience. The intelligence gleaned from Sophie Arnaud's mission, along with data from other sources, was leveraged to direct Israeli Air Force strikes against Hezbollah's command and control infrastructure. Some targets, identified through Sophie's observations and subsequent analysis, were struck with precision. Others, however, proved to have been partially or completely evacuated prior to the attacks, a direct consequence of the organizational changes prompted by Sophie's brief presence. The mixed results of these targeted strikes fueled an intense, often acrimonious debate within the Israeli intelligence community in the aftermath of the conflict. The question lingered: how effective was perishable intelligence against a rapidly adapting adversary? Beyond the immediate tactical and strategic outcomes, Black Protocol highlighted profound ethical dilemmas inherent in such high-stakes operations. Rachel, under the guise of Sophie, had engaged with Hezbollah members, cultivated their trust under false pretenses, and gathered intelligence that was subsequently used to direct military operations. These operations, conducted in the densely populated urban environment of Beirut, inevitably carried the risk of civilian casualties alongside legitimate combatant targets. Israel's justification was rooted in its imperative to protect its own citizens from Hezbollah's documented rocket attacks. Hezbollah, conversely, framed its actions as resistance against occupation and defense of Lebanese territory. Both sides could articulate compelling legal and moral arguments for their actions, laying bare the irreducible complexity of modern intelligence warfare. The psychological toll on operatives like Rachel Zimmerman was also a rarely discussed but critical aspect, spending months, even years, living a meticulously constructed lie, knowing that a single misstep, a forgotten detail, or a moment of hesitation could result in capture, torture, or death, leaves indelible marks. Dr. Sarah Goldstein, the 45-year-old operational psychologist at Mossad, played a crucial role in Rachel's post-operation support. Through extensive debriefing sessions and psychological evaluations, Dr. Goldstein helped Rachel process the emotional and cognitive burdens of her deep cover identity. Mossad, like other elite intelligence agencies, maintains extensive programs for post-operational psychological support, recognizing that the true cost of espionage is not merely measured in budgets and resources, but in the mental and emotional well-being of its human assets. Rachel, whoever she truly is beneath the layers of her legend, carries not only the professional satisfaction of a mission accomplished, but also the lingering memories and the psychological residue of every moment when her life depended on the flawless perfection of her performance. The long-term impact of Black Protocol on Hezbollah remained ambiguous, illustrating the complexity of measuring strategic success in intelligence. Tactically, the mission was a success. It provided valuable intelligence at a critical juncture, offering a glimpse into the adversary's internal workings that no other means could have achieved. However, the question of its strategic impact was more nuanced. Hezbollah not only survived the 2006 conflict, but arguably emerged politically strengthened within Lebanon, despite its military losses. The intelligence, while valuable, did not decisively alter the organization's long-term trajectory. Nevertheless, the operation became a seminal case study within intelligence schools globally. It was analyzed for its pioneering approach to deep cover construction, its successful infiltration of a resilient militant organization, and the specific challenges of operating in hostile urban environments. A significant takeaway was the strategic deployment of a female agent in a predominantly male-dominated sphere of arms dealing. Intelligence studies have shown that women in such commercial roles often face less scrutiny precisely because they are perceived as less likely to be intelligence operatives, a pervasive gender bias that operations like Black Protocol consciously exploit. Rachel Zimmerman's selection, therefore, was not merely based on her raw intelligence capabilities, but also on her nuanced ability to navigate the cultural and professional expectations of a highly masculine field. From Hezbollah's perspective, the episode served as a sharp reinforcement of counterintelligence lessons already being internalized. In the years following the 2006 conflict, the group implemented even more stringent security protocols, making future penetrations of this type significantly more challenging. They developed their own sophisticated background verification capabilities, drawing on a network of sources in Europe. They created specialized counterintelligence cells and adopted stricter compartmentation principles within their operational structure. In a perverse sense, successful intelligence operations often educate their targets, inadvertently making future endeavors more arduous. The story of Sophie Arnaud, a name that never truly existed, used by a woman whose real identity remains classified, illustrates both the extraordinary possibilities and the inherent limitations of modern espionage. It's a story where success is often partial, frequently temporary, and always bought at a price rarely reflected in official reports. It underscores the enduring, irreplaceable value of human intelligence in an age increasingly dominated by signals and cyber warfare. For all the technological advancements, no satellite can capture the interpersonal dynamics in a meeting room, the subtle tensions within an organization, or the intricate physical security details that only a trained human observer on the ground can perceive. This constant interplay between human cunning and technological prowess continues to define the hidden world of modern intelligence, a world where the risks are extraordinary and the lines between triumph and consequence are perpetually blurred. Sophie Arnaud, a phantom in the annals of espionage, ultimately completed her mission, returning to Israel not with a definitive victory, but with a trove of intelligence meticulously gathered under the guise of an arms dealer. The data she provided, a complex tapestry of human observation, intercepted communications, and crucial physical details, allowed analysts like David Cohen to construct an unprecedented map of Hezbollah's operational command in Beirut. Yet, even as this intelligence was being meticulously processed, the very act of its collection had already begun to alter the landscape. Hezbollah, alerted by subtle suspicions, adapted, shifting command posts and hardening security, a stark demonstration of the uncertainty principle in the shadow war. The observer inevitably changes the observed. The eventual test of this intelligence came with the ferocity of the 2006 Lebanon War. While Sophie's insights informed critical targeting decisions, the fluid nature of the conflict and Hezbollah's rapid adaptations led to mixed outcomes, sparking internal debates within the intelligence community about the true efficacy of intelligence gathered in such a volatile environment. The operation, a tactical success in its penetration, found its strategic impact veiled in ambiguity. Hezbollah, though bruised, persisted, emerging from the conflict politically strengthened, reinforcing its own counterintelligence capabilities in a cycle of perpetual learning. This complex narrative extends beyond the successes and failures on the battlefield. It delves into the profound ethical dilemmas inherent in deep cover operations, the deliberate deception, the potential for civilian casualties, and the moral calculus of intelligence versus national security. It illuminates the unseen psychological toll on operatives like Rachel Zimmerman, whose months of living a lie, sustained by Dr. Sarah Goldstein's support, etched indelible marks far beyond any official report. The deployment of a female agent, exploiting deeply ingrained gender biases, showcased not just ingenuity, but the cold calculation of intelligence tradecraft. The legacy of Black Protocol is thus not a tale of simple heroism or villainy, but a profound reflection on the enduring, often paradoxical nature of modern espionage. It underscores that even in an age dominated by satellites and cyber warfare, human intelligence remains irreplaceable for deciphering the nuances of intent and the intricate patterns of human organization. But it also reveals that victory is rarely absolute, often transient, and invariably comes at a cost, both tangible and unseen. The game of shadows is a continuous one, where every success plants the seeds for future challenges, pushing adversaries to evolve in a relentless, silent war. What are your thoughts on the ethical implications of operations like Black Protocol, where deception is a primary weapon? Share your perspective in the comments below, and if you found this story compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Black Protocol for more true crime intelligence narratives.